Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, no worries. Good morning, YouTube verse. Hope everybody is doing good. Um, gonna do a quick audio visual check. Hopefully everyone can see me, see my screen. I mean, hear my voice. You can let me know in the chat. Everything looks good on my end. And we'll go ahead and start the day looking around some news real quick. So, as always, it's always a good idea in the mornings to check our news channel, see if anything interesting came in overnight. Let's see. General Motors, six-fold increase in their electric pickup plans, so could see some interest there. Um, and sorry, I was just trying to get back to where. So Microsoft said to pursue a deal, I think, to acquire this Mandiant, MNDT. Take a look at that and see if it's popping. Oh, yep, trading halted already. Am I in yesterday? Oh gosh, I'm in yesterday. Sorry about that. I scrolled way too far. That's why I was getting confused. Yeah, I only meant to go about this far. So one interesting news blip from yesterday was Biden, for the first time, acknowledged Tesla as the biggest um, manufacturer of electric cars. So that was very interesting. And I think the stock, well, the whole market's up, but could get a little pump there just since there is now acknowledgement. We had CMG earnings, so definitely feel free to go check that out. Looks like they're doing well and had a beat on earnings. MasterCard proposes a quarterly cash dividend. See how that affects them. I have had some fun trading MasterCard. European US regulators tell banks to prepare for Russian cyber attack threat. Fun, fun. Japanese economy picking up. Looks like Tesla has another recall, but I don't know if you guys have noticed or read into these last few recalls on Tesla. They're all just over-the-air updates to the software. I mean, that's a very soft recall. It's nothing that costs very much logistically to accomplish. So These are all small impacts on these recalls lately. Looks like CVS reported. Definitely check in on upgrades, downgrades, as we should every morning. It looks like AMD got an upgrade this morning. Could give it a little extra. Same with Visa. And then Spain's raging minimum wage. That'll be nice. And now Peloton hiring McCarthy as CEO signals that there isn't an immediate plan to sell the company. So just stay away from Peloton is the best advice I can give. And as far as earnings, let's check back in on the map of the week on earnings. So we had Chipotle and Peloton, CVS already. Today, after the bell, watch is Twilio and Disney, Uber, interesting ones to watch. And then before the bell tomorrow, Datadog and Coke and Pepsi. Oh my, two titans. And then after the bell, Twitter, Cloudflare, Affirm. So, things to keep an eye on. Excuse me, 1 second. There we go. So, market on a tear, rallying, just like we have talked about every day in our prep. Come on, work for me, computer. There we go. Get our watch list up here. All right, so we do still have a 4-hour squeeze intact. Let me load in the squeezes. And I'm going to step out to a macro view real quick. There we go. So we talked about in Sunday prep, in each morning prep, that we had, come on computer, stay with me. We had a zone that was built around the highs from last week that we wanted to see held, that we wanted to see hold this week. The highs from 2 weeks ago after the sell-off created a nice zone of support that once we got back through, last week we started a fade off of our highs and basically ended up tapping on Friday the highs from 2 weeks ago in this consolidation from the sell-off. So basically the premise going into this week, we're in a downtrend from last week's highs. We have support from the highs from 2 weeks ago. As long as those hold, and as long as these squeeze bottoms hold, we can get through this trend line and start to rally, and that's what we got. Counter to that, it was if we gave out that zone, we can go back. So always have a thesis for both directions. We can only go sideways so long until pressure starts to build, and then we're going to release. So as you can see, as this fade happened and we went sideways long enough, all of the time frame squeezes came in right on top of each other to provide us with a day that will tell us, are we going up or down? And we got our answer. So now, hopefully, everybody got some good positions yesterday on longs. We've been covering them all week, and we can look in on some of them today. But the rally, getting through and the rally has started. We still have this 4-hour squeeze top to deal with, and if we can't get through it and through this high from last week, we're probably going to fall back into the 4-hour squeeze and sit on top of the daily mean. So we still have our 4-hour squeeze on ES and Q. On the ruddy we don't, and on YM we just barely have a daily squeeze. So let's check in on each of the indices on the higher time frame, and then we'll move down to lower time frames now that we're starting to trend in a direction. NQ, also at the top of its 4-hour squeeze, also pretty much held its support, or its highs from a couple of weeks ago, and these squeeze bottoms to get through the downtrend. And just like we teach, we try to take our position off of key levels and off of the squeeze extremes, the tops and bottoms. That's why we took long positions yesterday at these squeeze bottoms, like the QQQ 360 call. We'll take a look at that this morning as well. But we take position here. We are locking up at the top of the squeeze and at the trend line as we get through. We're locking up a little more as we hit the next squeeze up. And then as we pull back to test the trend line in VWAP, we're loading long again. We're not loading as we break out of the trend line. We're always playing to it and locking and playing off it again, because there's always a retest. So, if you miss the morning, don't chase, because your risk to reward is getting less and less. Wait for that pullback where everything hits beast again and takes off again, because that's how big money likes to play it. So on NQ, starting to push this 4-hour thinner and thinner, which makes it easier to fire. As you can see with this 2-hour, we ran into it, we run into it, we grind up it, it gets thinner, thinner, thinner. Now it's fired and we're outside of it. So looking for the same thing on the 4-hour, but we could just as easily hit the 200, come back into the 4-hour and settle again. But let's see if we can live life for a while in between these two, and if we can completely get through the 200 and back to the highs from last week. Take a quick look at the ruddy. Small caps definitely getting some love. They've already fired their higher time frame 4-hour squeeze and already up above the high from last week. So small caps getting good rotation and kind of leading in the regards of recapturing the highs from last week. So wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit more love into small caps, and could be also a good gauge if they top out and start coming back. That we could see the same on the other indices. YM looking man. Excuse me for another moment. Let me clear my. All right. YM looking nice and strong and also back above the highs on this push right now from last week. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on YM. If it can continue to push, because it's hard to move against it, but looking good and firing. That 4-hour squeeze, we have a daily, but it's only a few candles in, so definitely checking on, there's the bottom of it down there. Let's see if it has a top. Sometimes there's not a top. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say there's probably not a top on that one, so Let's go ahead and jump back in on a lower time frame because we will get some levels to watch for today. So we are above the daily mean, which is at 45.23, pushing pretty strong right to that 45.60. We do have this key zone from up above. If you remember, we've covered in prep. It's kind of where the highs topped out from last week. And during the sell-off, we bounced at it a couple of times, and then we rejected it to kind of mark the sell-off. So have this zone from 45.80 up to 4600. That could give us a little bit of a resistance. And then if we do pull back from this 4-hour squeeze and we don't fire it today, we do have zones right down where VWAP is right now, back down at the daily mean, and a little bit below it at this 45.15 with the daily 8 down at 45.07. So a number of key levels for support below. If we have any pullbacks, wait for a key level to get a long, because then you're knowing that what you're risking off of to play a more long trade. Let's go take a look at NQ. Let all this stuff load in. There you go. Yeah. So like we talked about, just now clearing the daily 21. We've got the daily 200 up at 15,045. We also have just the psych level of 15,000, pretty much right in between. So creates a nice zone for today that we are probably going to bounce around before seeing if we can keep pushing up out of this zone. And if we start to reject that 15,000, we know we can fall back to the 21 and back down to some of these other zones which are aligning with VWAP and the daily 8. Now let's dig in on some individual names. So I'm going to actually step out macro for a second just to make it a little clearer. What we talked about on Apple was holding this key zone, this 172 to 171. We bounced off of it Friday, faded back to it Monday, and sat in it basically all night, not heading lower, and in the cash session just went down to tap the squeeze bottom and that 171.31. It created a nice little wedge right in that area, didn't go lower, and took off. So always watch Apple for a gauge on tech. But the thesis for this week, same trend line from the highs, level of support. If it holds, go long. And yesterday it gave a nice little dip right near that 171.31, pretty close to 170, so you could have picked up those 170s for a pretty good price. Now they're deep in the money, and those 175s are already in the money. And just for fun, let's go ahead and check in on what those 175s provided with the Beast system. So there you go. That little morning fade tapped our zone 1, 2, almost 3 times. That level of 42 cents. Could have picked up 10 of those and held up to where our take profits were. Would have gone about $400 to $1,800 if you picked up 10 of those. So nice 4x. And as you can see, like like I talked about earlier, don't chase. Wait for that pullback to a key level on the equity, VWAP, or whatever on the equity, and then a key level on our options. Because that's where you can get another good entry for almost a double at the end of the day. Oh, and just for fun, let's look at those 170s. They didn't quite get down to their main beast, which was much lower, but that's why we watch a strike or two for a gauge. 175s got pretty close. 170s got right down near their bottom burger, 271. And those went for almost a double, basically. So, back to Apple. Let's see. We are now up above the, what's that, the first daily Keltner. Come on. Sorry, let me zoom in here. So, daily mean is down here. Oh, sorry, down here at 170.77. First Keltner up is this 175. We are now over that. I'm guessing that's probably why this wick even came down near these highs and that first Keltner. Keep an eye on these wicks. I'm not going to say this is how it always happens, but when you're in a trend like this and these wicks come down, it can be sometimes a sign that we're going to come back to revisit these lows in the cash session. I'd say that happens more often than you could imagine. And every so often, these kinds of crazy wicks are just like a big old dark pool print that comes in to get it before it takes off further. But just keep an eye on getting out of this zone, getting above that 177, because that's kind of the extent of the squeeze. If we can't get through there and hold, and the market keep pushing, then we are probably going to come back to retest where that wick stopped, in that 175. Especially since we are gapping up a point or two almost above that 175. So keep an eye on that for Apple today. And sorry, I'll step in small one more time on Apple, just to show you some of the levels of support. You can always go back and pause and mark some of these, but if you got the professor's toolkit, you have these indicators and you'll get the same zones on the same time frames. So on Apple today, see if it can get above this 177 and keep pushing. The rest of tech and NQ will follow. If it rejects this 177 in this 4-hour squeeze, we are going to come back and retest most likely at 175 and this wick. Moving on, AMD got an upgrade this morning. Chips have had relative strength last few days. And yesterday was no different. NVIDIA and AMD were strong right out the gate. A couple of little pullbacks and just grinded the rest of the day up. Getting up near that first ATR first Keltner up. So see how it deals with that 130 level. It has fired all of its squeezes. You can see the little 4-hour F means it's fired. So we'll see if AMD can continue above 130 and start making the trek to 135, where we have the 50, the daily 50 moving average. That's kind of the magnet to the upside. If we can't get through 132 and this daily Keltner, which will kind of be stepping up near 132 most likely. If we can't get through that level, then we will most likely be coming back 128, 126 for some retests of this consolidation of the highs yesterday. And there's another one of those wicks. Amazon. Had a very strong Friday. Looking like it wants to move Monday, but the market was pulling back a little. And yesterday, I mean, each name on the market on tech looked like this. Slow little fade or wedge at open with support right below. You guys should get used to seeing this. This is very key with our system. A slow little low volume wedge fade off of our clouds or a key level or a zone, and then immediate reversal and takeoff. If you look around at some of the options, let's see, maybe the 3300s with our system. What do you know? So if you're new to our system, this is how it looks all the time. We have key strikes that have tons of volume that we're going to keep an eye on. We have our proprietary calculated predicted levels that we're going to be watching. And on a day like yesterday where we need this, the market needs to make a decision, a lot of these names need to make a decision. We had that wedge from the trend line from the highs and that support and everything coming to a point. This is very common for it to look like this. A nice little fade into our beast zone. Sits in there for a little while, and then the whole market pops hard and turns. Why does the market pop so hard and turn? We don't know, but I like to think it's because all of these things align. We fall down and hold those squeeze bottoms and those levels of support that we've been watching all week, and at the exact same time, these strikes that we have been watching that used to live life way above our beast buy zone. These used to be $38, and they fall till they land right in our predetermined zone. If you'd have bought these yesterday for about $400, they hit about 16. So again, another 4x yesterday. And if you're going to swing something like this, our system still provides a gauge for that. Our intraday zone, buy at the bottom, sell at the top, it steps up based on the close of where this contract ends up on the day. So with things gapping up on something like this, we could likely open up near the top of this, depending on how far things gap up, and then you can use this as a gauge plus the take profits, the calculated PTs, profit targets that we put out. Most likely those are, here, we'll take a quick look just for fun. Options. Amazon, 3300s. Looks like we have some profit targets at 23, 29, and 35. So if you were in these or swung them, you'd be taking profit around 23, around 29, and around 35. Key levels that you'll want to keep an eye on a trade like this. But sorry, don't want to spend any more time on this. Just I love it when you can say, oh, I bet if we go look at these, they hit our buy zone. And then when you arrive, there they are. Always when there's some big crazy move, the beast is there behind it. So let's keep moving on. Sorry, taking a little bit longer this morning, only on Amazon. So yeah, let's see if Amazon can keep moving. It is above all these, so I want to see these zones turn into support and keep it trucking. But if the market's going to pull back, we'll revisit these zones and this little consolidation from yesterday around 3,200. Let's see if we can get up to that 3,300. Coin. No. Yeah, not interested in coin. Sorry. Skip through to Facebook. Kind of showed its first signs yesterday that it might be done getting beat up, and then it just got beat up. While the rest of the market was grinding up, Facebook was grinding lower. So, again, I would just not touch this one for a little while. Let it figure itself out, let it get its feet. We have plenty of other stuff to trade. Google, definitely looking interesting. Did not have the same looking day as, say, like Amazon and some of chips and whatnot in the market where it wedged and took off. Google, had its more dramatic kind of drop. Nice rally back. It looks more like a W instead of a take off, pull back, and get back up. So definitely going to have an eye on this because I think it'll be a kind of a nice catch up, but it still has its downtrend from the highs to deal with. Let's go step out for a second. So there you go. I called this out yesterday. Just some of us were in long on Google, and we didn't even get to test the trend line. So now we're starting to go sideways through it and gap through it. Wouldn't be surprised for a slight pullback to yesterday's highs at around that 2,800. And as long as that holds, could be a great spot to load Google. But who knows, it might just want to gap and go. So keep an eye on the gap. Low volume name like Google, a lot of times we fill it. Could provide a great opportunity to check out those 2,900s. Or 2850s. Let's see. Moderna, no real interest. I've covered it for a couple of days and it's not doing much. I'm going to leave it alone. Microsoft, though. Whole thesis on Microsoft for this week. Want to see it hold 300, which it tapped a number of times and held very, very well. I think it only dipped like a few cents below 300. And just like we wanted Apple to hold 170, 171, 172, and it did. We wanted Microsoft to hold 300, and it did. And then both of them get through their downtrend from the highs. So now we rally. Getting to that squeeze top, which I believe is a 4-hour. We still have a daily squeeze outside of that, which is way down here and way up at 320, right? And the daily 50, that hasn't changed. So Microsoft made a good start to the move like we were wanting. We were watching the 305s, 310s. They were very good trades. Now it's about to open near 310 and above the daily mean. Let's see those things hold. Basically want to see Microsoft stay above 307 today. If it starts to go below the daily mean and below that 307, it means revisiting the highs from yesterday, and that's taken us a little bit too far in the wrong direction. We could still, catch a great bounce there, but really want to see us hold this 307. And let's see if we can get through this 4-hour squeeze. It is a little thick here, so it would be kind of a slow grind day, right? But ultimately, we do have this high from last week to deal with, 315. The daily Keltner, the first one up, 317, and the daily 50 up at 320 with the daily squeeze top. Netflix. There were some decent pops. I gotta say, good job. I know a couple of folks that locked those up and said just didn't like the way they were moving, and look at how the rest of the day went. Sideways, while a lot of other tech names were grinding. So good job locking profits and recognizing, relative strength. Do I want to stay in this trade all day? Is Netflix looking like it's going to keep going? It doesn't, looking at this, it doesn't look like Apple or chips or any, strong name yesterday. So it is gapping up. now up near that 410. So congrats if you did swing a little bit of it. Let's see if it can hold the high from yesterday, this 406. If it does have a little pullback, got this squeeze top around 413. And the daily 8 and daily 15 are coming together right there around 415. So if we can get through that, we can visit this squeeze top around 420, and the daily Keltner will be there as well. But we still have the daily mean way up at 450. On NVIDIA. Finally back above 250. I know a couple of us hit those 250s yesterday. Amazing dip buy on those. Let's see, VIDI 250s. Let's just go take a look for fun. I won't spend much time talking about them, but they did slip outside of the burger. Not quite to our buy zone, but in those instances, we're also watching stuff like the 255s, which got very, very close, and I'm sure the 260s slapped it. In fact, yeah, I remember a couple of folks saying that they hit the 260s. Yeah, there you go. Those hit the beast. So, we watch those further out strikes as a gauge, and if they get bought up here, you can definitely play the closer strikes. But overall, great trade. Chips, strong. They did not go look sideways like Netflix did. Got this bounce off the squeeze bottom, go to squeeze top, pull back to VWAP to get bought right back up again, moving overnight. Let's see how we deal with 260 since we're almost there. Got the daily Keltner up at 265 as our main target's upside today. And definitely keep an eye on the 250 put now that we are above it, because that's going to be a good gauge. Roku. And definitely looking interesting. Not going to be a big target or interest for me today, but go ahead and mark. We do have the daily mean up at 166. We have some of these squeezes, 160 to 162 to deal with. We have support at 157 and 156, making a nice zone off of these two means and the high from yesterday. So if we have a pullback, could be a good spot to load around 156, 157 to get back to 162, 164, and 165 at the mean, the daily mean. I'm just going to skip straight to Tesla because we're running a little long today. Tesla was pretty good on relative strength yesterday as well. I know some of us hit those 950s and the 1000s. I personally wasn't liking the way the 1000s were moving, but held squeeze bottom, just slipped that 900 a little bit. I mean, as you can see on a 30-minute, these are all wicks, so fell below 900 and right back up, below 900, right back up, and right at our squeeze bottom. That should be a huge sign for everybody. That's the time to load. When we aren't going to get through the squeeze bottom and fire, and each one of these keeps wicking back up, pick your time frame, but 30-minute squeeze, 30-minute chart, 30-minute candles, top to bottom, hold bottom, right back to top. This is kind of what we do in here. So on Tesla today, got 950 to deal with. Daily mean is basically there. If we can get above that, we do have some key levels, 965 to deal with, 987, and then 1000, where's that trend line coming from? Higher time frame. Yep, 1000 is going to be a fight if we can get there. So let's see if we can get through this 950, through this 965, because after that it will be some smooth sailing up to that 980, 987. If we can't get through those, we're going to fall back and retest 925, 920, and that key level at 918. But hopefully we're done with those levels and we can just keep pushing. And before we finish, take a quick look at the Qs in SPY. Going to be very similar to what we covered in NQ and ES. But as far as levels, we absolutely slayed these 360s yesterday on the Qs. They are way in the money now. Let's go ahead and take a look at those just for fun. This is our system working perfectly. Our major buy zone comes together with our intraday buy zone for just double confluence, double support. We come in, they buy it up, they lock profits, they double load again, and off we go, locking up at the top, all the way back, one last tap, and here we go again. So Q's gapping up a little higher. These will probably open around the highs from yesterday, this 225, and keep trucking back up to these zones we had from before. You know, even if you don't have time to load the profit targets, the calculated PTs on your chart with the indicator provided, you can look back at previous zones on the intraday, the burger, and so you can see this 350 was the bottom and top, so 350 to 4 going to be a key zone, and 5 to 540 another key zone, if they were to get there today. These do expire today. It would mean the market needs to keep trucking and fire these squeezes and just gap and go, right? If this, then that. If we can gap and go, these will open around here, could provide a nice opportunity to load at around 225. They could get up to 5. Market really needs to truck. Just for fun, let's see what those 355s did. Not quite to beast. But once they break back above the burger at 260, 250, yeah, I'd be getting into those. They went about a double, almost. Will be a double at open today. Great trades. Let's go take a look at SPY. Same thing, held the squeeze bottom, held the daily 15, didn't even need to go tap the daily 200. Squeeze bottom, squeeze top. VWAP pullback, and we go. That usually is a recipe to gap up. So we got our tap of the daily mean, and now we are above it. Let's see if we have to go revisit it again, just to make sure we want to use it as support and take off. If we do pull down to the 21 on these names, I'm not going to be scared to take some risk long, because they're just potentially pulling it back to load again. Right? And I'm going to risk loading on a pullback to the 21 against, you know, these other recent prices. So looks like the 21 will be around 451. If we pull down to there, I'm going to load at 451, risking down to about 450. So I can risk a buck to go recapture 4 or 5. It's kind of how we teach. It's what we'll be watching today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Sorry we ran a little long. Just wanted to provide a little extra value and review so that you can connect these dots with what we review every day and kind of the thesis that we come up with every day. Played out very well on ES, and each one of our predictions and our beast zones on the calls were a great trade. So thanks for tuning in. If you're new and this is your first time watching, come check us out at predictedtrades.com. Follow us on Twitter at predictedtrades, and definitely feel free to reach out. There's a spot on our website to send us an email. If you have any questions, I will reply personally to let you know how you can join Predicted Trades. Thanks again for tuning in. See you in the chat.